Welcome back to Inner Calling Astrology, where it's never too late to be who you are. Today, we'll begin a 12-episode series in which I convey the essence of each of the 12 astrological signs through images, keywords, and story. We're going to kick off the series with the first sign, Aries, and we're doing it in Aries season, spring. This is the time of year in which nature bursts to life. That seed that was planted last year has now survived the frost and springs up boldly from the earth to take its place in the sun. I'm going to use the character of Xena, the warrior princess, as an illustration of Aries energy. For those of you who are not familiar with the character, Xena, the warrior princess, was a popular TV series in the 90s starring Lucille, Lawless, who, by the way, is an Aries herself. And who better to project that fiery, fearless persona than an actual Aries? Now, even if you yourself are not an Aries, Aries will rule some planet or house in your chart. If you don't know the position of Aries in your chart, you can leave a request in the comments section with your email address. I'll then choose a few people's names, and on a future show, I will post those charts and explain how the Aries energy will show up for you. If you're chosen, I'll email you and request your birth information. By the way, thanks very much to all of you who have reached out to me for readings. My website is www.innercallingastrology.com. And thanks to all of you who have subscribed to the channel and pressed the like button. It's a tremendous support to the channel. Now, on to Aries. Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, the first fire sign. Aries is known as the warrior, the survivor, the adventurer, and the protector. Look to an Aries friend if you need someone to fight a battle with. Or if you're looking for someone to go skydiving with, daring, adventurous Aries is the one to choose. Fierce Mars is the ruling planet of Aries. Mars is the god or goddess of war. Mars is a very physical sign and is connected with a literal battlefield situation. But of course, that fighting spirit can manifest on other frontiers, such as having the courage to give an unpopular opinion or speaking honestly about your feelings with a loved one. Mars is a fire sign, as I mentioned, and this conjures up the image of a wildfire. Mars has a combustible, unpredictable, and uncontrollable character. In the same way a fire can burn out of control in the woods, so can we also find our passion or anger triggered suddenly and unexpectedly, often without a conscious decision on our part. That is the Mars in us. Now we see the symbolism for this wild card nature of Mars in its astronomy. Mars is further away from the sun than the other inner planets. Mars is about 142 million miles away from the sun, a little over twice as far as Venus, for instance. Now, the sun represents our values and rational thinking. So with impetuous Mars being so distant from the sun, the theory is that Mars has more freedom from the dictates of the sun. I think of it like kids going away to sleepaway camp. The further they are from their parents, the less control can be exerted over their actions. As I mentioned in my introduction, Xena was known as the warrior princess of the 1990s TV series of the same name. She was the embodiment of the Aries spirit, brave, independent, and passionate. Xena is first introduced to us as the mortal enemy of Hercules, and we find them initially engaged in a fight to the death. In this scene, Xena is attempting to decapitate Hercules. It's not long, however, till they transition from trying to murder one another to a different type of intensity as they embark on a sexual relationship. Aries is a very passionate, physical, and impulsive sign. So seamlessly going from fighting to physical intimacy is not a stretch for Aries. Now, while Aries is a highly independent sign, throughout most of the series, we see Xena with her comrade in arms, Gabrielle. Aries people make highly loyal, protective, devoted friends, and sacred lifelong friendships are often forged on a battlefield. Aries the warrior will risk their life to protect those they love. Aries is willing to die for a loved one or a cause. In one episode, Gabrielle is taken prisoner by cannibals who tie her to a spit, slather her in orange lard, and prepare to barbecue her. Despite being utterly outnumbered in her quest to save Gabrielle, Xena jumps into the fray because warriors do not let fear stand in their way. The high goal of Aries is precisely that. Never let fear stand in the way of what you're meant to do. Xena crashes onto the scene, overcoming dozens of hungry, sword-wielding cannibals to save Gabrielle's life. Today is a good day to die. That quote has often been attributed to Lakota warrior Crazy Horse, and it encapsulates the warrior spirit of courage and readiness to put everything at risk to be true to one's convictions. Of course, going to any extreme to defeat one's enemies begs the question, how far should someone go? Now, when it comes to defending those we love, I think most people would agree that there's no judgment for any measure we might take against someone trying to hurt our child, our partner, or any family member. But what about the ethics of retaliation? And how much force is too much? Gabrielle wrestles with these questions after the man she has just married, Perdiccas, is murdered. And as she buries her loved one, she is left to consider the notion that perhaps she needs to step back from the battlefield. Warriors are survivors. Gabrielle puts aside her grief and returns to Xena's side to meet the next challenge and fight another day. They have weathered one storm of many in the life of a warrior, and they persevere because warriors are resilient. Now, we've looked primarily at the noble side of Aries, but every sign has a shadow side. In the case of Aries, it's good to remember that if one does not consciously manage this high-octane sign, there can be a surplus of this adrenaline-fueled desire to assert oneself. One can fall into the trap of becoming addicted to the thrill of rising to emergency situations, or find oneself unconsciously initiating disputes, whether it's a verbal argument or an actual physical altercation. Alternately, that Aries energy could propel us to prematurely jump into some situation for which we are not fully prepared. Aries impulsivity can lead us into a skirmish in which we find ourselves hopelessly outnumbered. Or we can unconsciously turn that Aries energy on ourselves. According to Freud, anger turned inward can become depression. So how do we proactively manage this Aries energy? Normal waking life can seem boring after a battle is over. So people with a lot of Aries in their chart need to have positive outlets for this energy, whether it's doing yoga, kayaking, jogging, saving animals, mountain climbing, or joining a debate team. People with high Aries energy must have a positive outlet for that strong Martian force. Now, this operates on a cultural level as well as a personal one. Look at the role that sporting events has played for the culture. Especially in peacetime, it allows us to feel the Mars in us, to root for our team and experience the thrill of competition. Now let's take a closer look at the celebrity who played Xena. Here is Lucy Lawless. As I mentioned, Lawless, the actor who played Xena, is herself an Aries, and who better to project that fiery, fearless persona than an actual Aries? And if we look at Lucy Lawless's biography, we see that ability to have the courage of her convictions. Just taking the role of Xena in itself was a brave step. A character so at odds with the traditional feminine role required her to have courage. And especially with all the obvious sexual undertones between Xena and Gabrielle. Lucy Lawless is also an off-screen warrior in her role as protector of the environment. Here's a picture of Lucy Lawless in her real-life role as an environmental activist, heading up the launch of the Save the Arctic campaign. In true warrior fashion, Lawless was willing to put her body on the line when she climbed atop an Arctic oil drilling ship and allowed herself to be arrested. Why don't we take a closer look at Lawless's chart to see where we'll find her Aries sun? What house? So looking at Lawless's chart, we see that Aries rules the first house. This is also known as the rising sign and is synonymous with our personality, the physical body, and first impressions. Any sign or planet in the first house forms our social mask and indicates how we dawn on people at first meeting. Now, if you're not familiar with the rising sign, feel free to watch the episode about Lucille Ball's chart, in which I explain the meaning of the sun, moon, and rising. I'll leave a link below. Lawless is actually a triple Aries, with the sun, moon, and rising all in that first house. So that Aries punch is accentuated in her energy field, and one can likely feel that Martian fire upon meeting her. Much more so than, for instance, if Aries were hidden in a more internally oriented house, like the 12th house of meditation or the 4th house of home. Where is Aries in your chart? So even if you are not an Aries sun sign, Aries is somewhere in your chart, telling you in what area of your life you need to be a warrior. In what aspect of your life do you need to have the courage of your convictions? If you want me to answer that question for you, leave a request in the comments section with your email address. And if you're chosen, I'll contact you for your birth information. I'll then post your chart with your permission, of course, in an upcoming episode. Now, if you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. And stay tuned for the upcoming second episode of the series, in which we'll look at the second sign, Taurus. I look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, during Aries season, let's think about where we need to be brave. Thank you.